I guess yes, you can start in English, and Ayman will start recording right now.
Yeah, I already started the recording. This session, hello everybody, this is Ayman Saad and Nancy Hamed, Team E Receipt project from ETA. And this session is for technical support on how to integrate with the e-receipt solution. And this session will be represented and discussed in English and will be represented from Microsoft team. And after they finish the presentation about how to integrate with SDK, we will start receiving your questions through raising hand feature, and we will take the questions one by one. So, Engineer Ahmed Shaheen from Microsoft, should you start, please?
Thank you, everyone.
Mr.
Yes, please go ahead.
Mr. Ahmed, I just wanted to add one note that after this session ended, we have another session at 1:30. I will share the link for this session in this chat. It will be our pleasure to join with us this session for explaining the next steps after explaining the components of the SDK file. So after this session, we will have another session at 1:30. I will share the link into this chat. Okay, thank you, Mr. Engineer Ahmed, you can start.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today in our session. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Ahmed Shaheen. I'm a Microsoft Solution Architect who will be helping you to work today on the session. I would like also to introduce my colleagues. Emi, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, hello everyone, good morning. This is Emi Kamal from the Microsoft team working on the e-receipt solution project.
Thank you, Emi. I also would like to introduce Wissam. Wissam, please go ahead.
Yeah. Hello, my name is Wissam Al Sharif. I'm an application development consultant working on e-receipt project as a tech lead.
As per our session, what we will do, we will start with the SDK. So please feel free to raise your hand whenever needed. If there is any question, I will guess our team, we will be able to handle it and answer your questions as we move forward. Allow me to start first by asking Emi and Wissam if you would like to proceed and share your screen and start presenting our SDK.
Yes, so I will be sharing my screen. So Ahmed, please let me know. You can confirm when you can see the screen.
I'm able to see it. Guys, are you able to see the screen shared by Emi?
Yeah, confirmed, Emi.
Okay. So thank you, everyone. I will be starting by presenting to you the SDK and having a walkthrough on the portal to show you the changes, the new features, the new APIs that we have in the e-receipt solution and that you can use to integrate with our system for the e-receipt. So first to start to access the SDK portal. So if you are already using the e-invoicing solution, so most probably you will be familiar with this portal. So for the e-receipt solution, we are still using the same portal for the SDK, which we have this link. We will be sending you this link so you can try it yourselves and have a walkthrough on the portal. So basically, it's the same portal. Nothing has changed. We just added some new functionalities that we will be showing you today. So to start with the portal, we just click on Getting Started, where we go to the portal and the navigation. So mainly we have on the top, you see the tabs, we have the release notes, the APIs itself, this is the technical part. And in this part, we see three areas. We have common APIs, which are the APIs that are used commonly between the e-invoicing and the e-receipt solution. And we have the APIs specifically for the e-invoicing and APIs for the e-receipt which is the new part and the area that we will be covering for the session today. We also have the types, we have the codes, frequently asked questions and contacts, and we will be going through all of these during this session. And of course, if you have any questions, I prefer that we have the questions at the end of the session. So please take notes of the questions, or you can raise your hands and we can have like a discussion after I'm finished or done with the walkthrough on the portal. So to get started, you will see here, this is just a description about our solution. We're talking here about the e-invoicing and the e-receipt solution. If we go to the release notes, I just want to show you what has been added to the portal, to the solution, what are the new features. So for the release notes about the new features, so this is what's the new and the changes that we have here. For the first part, it's explaining that we have now 3 subsections: the common APIs, the e-invoicing APIs, the e-receipt APIs. We have a receipt issuance page, mainly explaining any details or any questions about how you can issue the receipt. We have also added, this is an updated page about some Postman collection that we added to include the new APIs for the e-receipt solution. So basically, this is what has changed in the portal for the SDK. We're also talking about new types. So by types, we mean the new document type that we have here, which is the receipt type. So in the old solution, we had the invoice, but now we introduced a new type, which is the receipt document type, and the new return receipt document type, which is actually basically a return receipt when you want to return something. So we have new types, the receipt and the new return receipt. And we will be going in details into each one to show you the details of the receipt, the structure, and what are the fields that we have in each one of them. Also, a new thing, we have the codes. So in the e-invoicing solution, we had codes that the taxpayers were using, but we added also new codes that can be used, which are the order delivery mode and the payment methods modes, and we will be going into these. So regarding the APIs, so the new APIs that we have are login as taxpayer system, point of sale. So here, this API is talking about how you can log in or integrate your point of sale to the e-receipt solution, submit the receipt documents, get the receipt details, get the receipt submission. And this is similar to the get receipt details, but it's a bit different. And we will go into these to explain what each one of these APIs can do. So this is briefly what we have, what we will be covering today, and what we have, so you are able to integrate with the e-receipt solution and the APIs that you can use to integrate. So I would like to start first with going to the receipt itself to understand the receipt, the structure, the fields, how it looks like. So for the receipt, so we have, for now, usually we have different versions, but for now we have version 1.0, which is the receipt document type version that is supported on the e-receipt solution up till this moment. And for the returned receipt, we still have the same version 1.0 to be used. So I'll be going into each one. So let's check the receipt and the details that we have in it. So you will see here on the right, you will have an overview, a data structure, and additional considerations, any extra information that you need to know about the receipt. So in the overview, it just explains what is the receipt. In the data structure, this is the part where we have all the information about the structure and the fields of the receipt. So I'll be going on all the fields that we have in the receipt. And of course, if you have any questions, we can discuss it at the end of the session, or you can raise your hand if you want to now. Okay, so you will find the structure of the data will be displayed in a table explaining what's the element and what's the type, and the description about the element or the field, and an example will be provided as well for the field itself. So we'll see here. So to start with, we have the first thing in the receipt, we have the header. Okay, so the header is a mandatory field and it contains other elements. So if we click here, you will find here, this is the link. So if you click here, you will go down in the page. You'll see here as well that it has been expanded. The item has been expanded, and it's showing all the elements that we have in the receipt structure for easier navigation for you if you want to navigate from the right. So going back, the header is the first thing that is included in the receipt. It includes these fields. To start with, we have the date time issued. So this is the date time of when the receipt was issued. And this is a mandatory field in UTC. And this is an example of how the date time on the receipt should look like. The second thing is the receipt number. Okay, and this is a mandatory field. And then we have the UUID. So this is the universal identifier of the receipt, which it's a mandatory field, and it's in SHA 256 format. And we have a section explaining that I will be showing you later in the session on how to generate the UUID for the receipt. The third one is the previous UUID. So the previous UUID, it's still mandatory in SHA 256 format, and this references the previous receipt that was issued from the same point of sale. So I need to point out the previous UUID for the receipt I am issuing from the same point of sale. The other field, we have the reference old UUID. This is an optional field, and this should be included if you have, if this receipt had an old UUID that was assigned to it, but it got changed. So we need to add this old UUID as a reference for the receipt. Other than that, we have the currency. So this is a mandatory field. You can choose from the currency codes tables that we have, and you should include what is the currency of the receipt that you are issuing. We have the exchange rate, and of course, this is a mandatory field if you are choosing a currency that is other than the EGP. The order name code, the order delivery mode, and the gross weight and the net weight for the receipt. And all of these fields are optional. So this is the header of the receipt. If we go back to the core, we are finished with the header part. The second part is the document type. So if we navigate to the document type, I have to specify what is the receipt type. For example, if I'm issuing a sales receipt, I have to select that this is an S, a sales receipt, and the type version of the receipt, which for now is 1.0 because we don't have other versions. So moving to the core part, and of course, they were mandatory fields as well. The third part is information about the seller. So if we go to that, so for the seller, we have the RIN, which is the registration number. It's a mandatory field. We have the company trade name. We have the branch code, branch address. And for the branch address, we have a structure related to that, which is should include the following. We should have the country, the governorate, the region, city, the street, the building number, and the postal code, the floor, the room, and any landmark or additional information that can make the address more clear. Of course, that this is all provided with examples, so it can explain better how the branch address should look like. So if we move back to the seller, so we said that we have the RIN, the company trade name, the branch code, and the branch address, which are all mandatory fields. The device serial number, and here we are talking about the point of sale serial number that you are using. The syndicate license number, if you have any, as this is an optional field, and the activity codes that you are using. So this is about the seller part that you need to include in the receipt. The next part is the buyer. This is information about the buyer. So for the buyer, we have first thing is the type of the buyer. So the buyer, we have three types. Either it's a B, it's for business, P for person, or F for foreigner. So you have to specify which type of buyer you are issuing or giving the receipt to. And the second field in the buyer part, we have the ID of the buyer. And by ID, we mean different things. So it either can be the national ID, when we choose that the type we are using is person, or the company registration number, if we are saying that the type we are using is B, which is business, or the passport number when we are saying that we are using a foreigner type. And this field is optional, but it will be mandatory if the receipt amount is more than 50,000 Egyptian pounds. So if the receipt exceeds that amount, then this field has to be given, it has to be mandatory. Other than that, it will be optional, you don't have to provide it. Next to the ID, we have the name of the buyer, the mobile number, and the payment number, which are all optional fields. So we talked about the header, the document type, the seller, and the buyer data in the receipt. The next part is the item data, and this is about the items themselves that are included in the receipt. So for each item, we have the internal code of the item, which is a string, a mandatory field. We have a description of the item. We have the item type and the item code. For example, it's EGS or GS1 and the code. And we have the unit type, which could be like the measurement of the unit itself. For example, it's kilograms, for example, if we're buying something that can be measured in kilograms. And these, we have code tables for the measures for the unit types, which is an old code table that was included in the e-invoicing solution as well. We have the quantity for the item, the unit price for the item, the net sale, the total sale, and the total. A commercial discount is an optional field. If we have any, an item discount is option, and the value difference, and taxable items. For the taxable items, it's an array of taxable items. So if we navigate to that, we just need to specify what is the tax type that we have, and the amount and the subtype of the tax type and the rate. So this is the information that needs to be included for each items that we are adding to the receipt. So moving back to the core, we have finished the item data. So after that, we need to have the total sales, the total that's on the receipt level, not on the item level. The total sales, it's a mandatory field. Total commercial discount, if we have, is optional. Total items discount. Extra receipt discount, if it exists, it's an optional field as well. And the net amount, fees amount, and the total amount, and the tax totals. The payment method. For example, I'm saying I'm paying in cash and Visa. Adjustment, if we have any adjustment on the receipt. Contractor, if it exists, it's an optional field. And in the contractor, we need to include the name of the contractor, the amount, and the rate. And the last field or element that we have in the receipt is the beneficiary, which includes the amount and the rate. And of course, this is optional as well. So by this, we have covered all the fields that need to be included in the receipt, including which one are mandatory and the type of the element as well. And the last part is additional consideration. Usually we add notes in this part that if you need to consider. And here we will need to check the receipt issuance FAQ page, which I will be navigating to at the end. So this is what the sales receipt looks like. So if we go back to check the other type of the receipt, which is the return receipt, we want to check how this looks as well. So I navigated to the types from the tab at the top. So you see here, these are also as well the old for the e-invoicing solution, the debit and the credit and the invoice, and at the bottom is the receipt and the return receipt. So if I want to navigate to the return receipt to check what we have here, so basically the return receipt for the structure it is exactly the same as the receipt. There is no difference. The only difference is we have an extra field in the header information. So the extra field is the reference UUID. So the reference UUID, it's a mandatory field if you are issuing a return receipt, which is reference to the UUID of the sales receipt, the original sales receipt for which you are issuing or having the return receipt. Other than that, we have exactly the same structure, exactly the same fields. That's just the only difference here. So by that, we have covered the what the receipt and what the return receipt will look like, which is the core that we have here for the e-receipt solution. So next, I wanted to show you the new code tables that we have. So we have two codes, which are the order delivery mode and the payment methods. These are not very big tables, and they are included in the same page. So if you navigate from the top or you go on the codes, you will find the old codes, such as the activity type, the branches, the country codes, currency codes. So the new ones are the order delivery mode. So if you navigate to this one, you will see a table that includes the codes, the new codes that we have. FC is a code for meaning from the company place, TO transport by others, TC transported by the company. So that's for the order delivery mode. For the payment methods, we have these codes, which is a bigger table, but includes different codes for payment method. For example, C is cash, B Visa, and so on for other different payment methods. So these are the new codes that we have that has been added to the SDK, to the solution. So next, I want to go to the core part of this session, which are the APIs for the e-receipt solution, the new APIs that you have to understand and be able to use to integrate with the e-receipt solution. So I'll move to the e-receipt API page, which you can go to from this tab, API, and you go to the e-receipt part, will get you into this page. So for the e-receipt API, you will see in the page, we have the different APIs. I will start with authenticate point of sale system, which is the first step that you need to do to integrate with the solution. So about the page, you will find this structure of each page for the APIs, you will have an overview, which is an explanation of what the API does, signature, inputs for the API, outputs, and additional notes or additional considerations on each API. So the first API that I mentioned is authenticate point of sale. So this is the first step that you need to do to integrate with the e-invoice, the e-receipt solution. So the first thing is to be able to use the e-receipt solution, you have to register your point of sale. So the registration of the point of sale can be done through the registration portal through certain steps. For example, you have to provide the vendor, the model, the serial number, and so on to register, to say that I want to register this point of sale to my profile to be able to integrate it with the e-receipt solution. And after that, after you have registered the point of sale, you can start using this API, which is you have to authenticate the point of sale. So to authenticate the point of sale, this API, how you can use it. So first thing, the signature for the API is post connect token. This is how you can call the API. And what are the inputs that you have to provide to the API so you can authenticate the point of sale and be able to integrate it. So you have to provide, so you see here, this is the section of the inputs. So you have to provide the point of sale serial number, the point of sale OS version, the point of sale model framework, and the pre-shared key. So these are the inputs that the API will need to authenticate the point of sale, okay? And also we have some body parameters in the body as an input as well, such as the grant type that should be client credentials. And you also need to provide the client ID and the client secret, which are like the username and the password, so you can authenticate the point of sale. So after you have given all the input and called the API, so what are the outputs that you get? So when the call is successful, we have a successful response. So of course it returns a status code 200, and what is returned to you is the access token. It's a GWT token, okay, and this token is the token that you will be using that makes sure that your point of sale is authenticated, that you can call the rest of the APIs later on. And another one note that to be able to use the e-receipt solution, to be able to authenticate your point of sale, you need to have to your profile a tag called B2C. So the tag B2C is a tag on your profile that enables you to use the features for the B2C for the e-receipt solution, which includes the authentication of the point of sale and submitting the receipts and getting a receipt details and all of the APIs that we have in the e-receipt. For the e-invoicing, it's just the B2B tag. So this is not enough. If you have the B2B tag, it's not enough that you can use this API or the rest of the APIs for the e-receipt. You need to have the B2C tag as well. So, so this is returned to you, the access token, and the token time it's there, and how long until the token expires. Okay, it's configured now for 1 hour expired, and scope. It's an optional. It tells you what is the scope of the token. For example, the invoicing APIs. So if the authentication is not correct, you will get a 400 bad request, and it will tell you what is the error that you are getting, what's the reason. For example, you provided a wrong client ID, you're unauthorized, the point of sale serial number is invalid, and so on. You can get like a list of errors that explains to you why this request is not successful. So as I said, this is the first thing that you need to do to be able to use the rest of APIs to be able to submit your receipts to our solution. you need to provide the authenticate the POS, you get the token, and then use the token for the rest of the APIs. It means that you are authorized and authenticated to use the rest of APIs. Of course, you must have the B2C tag, and you have to register your point of sale first to be able to authenticate it later. So this is about the first API that we have here. So going back to the full list of the APIs. Okay, so you authenticated the POS. So the next thing that logically you will be doing is to submit your receipts to the e-receipt solution. So for that, you can use the submit receipt API. And this explains an overview about the API information. It tells you that the receipt has to follow the receipt structure that I showed you earlier. And it tells you as well that this API supports that you submit the receipts in JSON format. And that you need to authenticate and integrate your point of sale system to be able to use this API. So for the signature on how you can call the API, it's post API v1 receipt submission. And so this is how you can call the API. And what are the inputs for the API? So so first, for the header parameter content type, I have to say that the type of the receipts that or the documents I'm submitting, they are in JSON format. So this has to be specified. I'm saying that I'm submitting in a JSON format, and this is the example application/JSON. And for the input about the receipts itself, I need to provide that in the body of the request. Okay, I can submit one receipt or multiple receipts in the same submission. So in the body, I have to include the receipts in the structure that we had that I showed you earlier. I need to include all the receipts in JSON format that can be submitted to the system. And the second part is the signature. So this part is not included with us for now. So you don't have to add the signature. So basically, this is a digital signature that you need to include with your submission. But as I said, this is not necessary to do for now. So all you can do is to just add the list of receipts that you want to submit. And of course, the receipt can be either a sales receipt or a return receipt. Within the same submission, it doesn't have to be of a specific type. Just to show you some notes. Okay, so this, yeah, it's not, I'll show it to you later. So for its information about the submission, so as I said, some limitations that I will be showing you later on the receipt, the structure, and we have some validations that you need to consider before submitting the receipt in order that the receipt won't be rejected. As I said, you can have at least one receipt in the submission, and other conditions that I will be showing you later to consider before doing the submission to the system. So upon sending the request and sending your receipts, you will be getting either a successful response or an error. So when you get a successful response and you have submitted the documents, you will be getting a submission UUID. This is an ID for the submission, the whole submission, not just the receipt. That will be generated by the backend system and be given to you. And you will be getting a list of accepted receipts. You will see what are the receipts that are accepted, and if there are any rejected receipts, you will see the list of the rejected receipts and the error for each receipt, why this has been rejected. So when you get the document accepted, you will get it in this structure. You will get the UUID of the receipt, the long ID, and the receipt number. So for the documents rejected, you will get the receipt number, the UUID of the receipt, and the error of why this receipt has been rejected. And in the error itself, you will find a message. So this is a message explaining to you why this error happened, the target of the error, what caused the error, property path, the path, and details, more details, which is it could be a list of multiple errors that were detected, and maybe just not one error. So it's going to be the same structure if you go to it, but just specifying that within a rejected receipt or document, you can have multiple errors, not just one error. And if the submission is not accepted at all, you will get an error, a bad response with different codes, and each code explaining why, what is the error that happened. For example, it could be a bad structure. So for example, you have provided the receipt in a structure other than the one that we showed you earlier. Something is changed, maybe a field is missing. So this could be a bad structure, incorrect submitter, and maybe I'm not authorized to submit this document. Maximum size exceeded of the receipts or the submission, or we have a duplicate submission. This submission has been done before. So these are the possible errors that we are getting, why the submission was not accepted from the beginning. And for the signature, as I said, this part is on hold now, so we can just ignore it. And this is the API that you can use to submit your receipts to the e-receipt, to the solution. So after you have done your submission, so we have different APIs to get information about your receipts or your submissions that has been now are included now in our system. You want to get information, you want to query about information about the receipts and the submission. So the first API I will be checking is get the receipt submission. And this is an API to check on the submission itself, not each receipt on its own. So when you are doing the submission on the system, it's not, even if it's accepted, we do in the back end other validations on the receipt to make sure everything is correct. So during this process, it doesn't mean that it's accepted. Maybe after we are doing the validations, we find an error, so we have to reject the submission again. So in the meanwhile, if you want, maybe you want to know about the status of the submission, you want to know if it's still in progress, if it's accepted, if it's rejected. So in order to do that, you can use this API, which is the get receipt submission. So for this is how the signature, this is how you can call the API. So to call the API, you need to have the submission UUID, which was returned to you when you did the submission in the first place. It returned to you the UUID. So you can use that UUID to query about the status of the submission. So for the inputs of the API, of course, you have to provide the submission UUID and a page number and the page size. So the page size is it's like the number of the receipts you want to have displayed per page. So this is more of how to display the results. The output that you will be getting when you call this API. So you will mostly find about some information about the submission and some information about the receipts in the submission. So you will find what will be returned to you, the submission UID and the seller ID, the RIN of the seller, the submission channel. So the submission channel is a field that specifies what is the channel that you submitted the receipt through. So it could be an ERP, which was included in the e-invoicing solution, and still with us on the e-receipt, of course. It could be the point of sale, which is specifically to the e-receipt. It could be did the submission through the portal or through the mobile application. So we have 4 different channels that will be returned to you saying which channel you have submitted the receipt or the submission on. The date time received when the submission was received, the date time issued when the submission was issued, and the status. So this is overall status of the submission of the batch of the receipts. As I said, we have 3 statuses. It's in progress. It means that they were still doing the validations on the submission. Valid, it means that it has been accepted. The whole submission is valid. Invalid, it means there is an error with 1 or multiple receipts in the submission and it's not accepted. The submission errors, it's a list of errors that we have in the submission. And this is the structure of the errors that you will be getting. And the receipts, you will be getting a summary of a list of the receipts in the submissions. In the document summary, so this is a summary about each receipt. So this is specific, not on the whole submission, it's specifically to the receipts. So you will find some information such as the UID, the receipt number, date time issued and received, the document type, for example, it's sales or return receipt, the version, the seller ID, the seller name, buyer ID, and so some information about the receipt itself, and the errors, list of errors that were detected within this receipt. So this is specifically to the receipts and some metadata. So for the metadata, it's includes the total pages, total count, current page number. So this is when you call the API, and this is what's the output and what it returns to you when you want to inquire about the status of a submission that you did. So of course you get a response if an error, if you, for example, you provided a submission UID that is incorrect, that is not in the system, you will not be getting anything. So this is about the get submission details. And as I said, you could be using this API to understand, to get information about the submission you have made to the system. So after you have submitted the receipts, you have inquired, you got the status about the submission, you wanted information. So after that, if the receipts are accepted, they will be entered in the system. And after that, you can get information about each receipt individually through these APIs. So we have get receipt details and get receipt. So basically they're the same, but get receipt details has more of information within each receipt. So to call the get receipt details, so as I said, the receipts have been accepted and they are now in the system, and you want to get information about your receipts. So to use the API, you use the signature get get receipts, and you provide the UUID of the receipt you want to get the details about or to inquire about. So as I said, as an input, you need to provide the UUID of the receipt. So the information that is returned to you, of course, it's information about the receipt. Okay, so the receipt details, so this is all the information in the table that we provided to you about the receipt. You will have the submission UUID of which this receipt was included, in which submission, date time received, date time issued, submission channel, and the receipt itself in this structure. So if you go back to the document summary, so this is the information about the receipt that will be returned, the UUID, long ID, previous UUID, reference all the UUID if any, the date time, the receipt number, currency, and so on. This is all the information that is returned to you about the receipt details when you call this API. All this information specifically about the receipt. You can check it to understand all the fields that will be returned to you. And of course, you'll get an error if you provided wrong UUID, for example, and it's not in the system. So this is the get receipt details API. For the get receipt, it's very similar to the other API, the get receipt details. The only difference here that it includes the original JSON receipt that you have submitted. It's in JSON format. So it's the raw document that will be returned to you. So as an input, of course, it needs the UUID as well. You need to provide that, okay? And as an output, you will see here the extra field that we have here, other than the get document details, is that it returns the document in the raw format, in the JSON format. And as well, all the details of the receipt, same as the other API. Difference that it returns to you the receipt in raw format. So these are all the APIs that that are included in the system for this phase that you can use to integrate with the solution that you can try at your site. The last API that we have is get the receipt details anonymously. And as I said, you need to have your point of sale authenticated to use all of the APIs that we went through. The only API that you can use anonymously without POS authentication. So this one, it's the get receipt details anonymously. It does not have as a requirement that you are authenticated. So to use this to use this API, you call the signature. You have as an input to provide two things: the UUID of the receipt and the date time issued of the receipt. So to inquire about a receipt anonymously, you will need to provide these two parameters. And as an output, it will provide you information about the receipt, the document summary, and all the details of the receipt, same as the other APIs. One thing that is that's different here, other than the APIs, that in case you are calling this API without authentication anonymously, the buyer ID and the buyer mobile number will not be shown to you if the type is foreigner or person. So this information is not displayed, the buyer ID and the mobile number. So that's the difference in other than the other APIs. Other than that, it will be provided to you the details of the receipt. So by that, we have covered all the new APIs that we have here, starting by authentication, submitting receipts, getting receipt submission, and getting receipt details. So these are the list of APIs that we have here. So the second part, or third or fourth part that we can cover in the session, is about going back specifically to the receipt details. As I said, we have covered that the receipt needs to have a certain structure, but as well, we have some extra information, some extra validations that need to be considered when you are submitting or issuing the receipt. So you can find this extra information in the receipt issuance FAQ page, which you can navigate to from the FAQ page. You will find the receipt issuance FAQ page that you can check. So you will find here on the right the different sections that we have in this page. So all related to the receipt. So we have the first section is the main calculations. So these are some of, as I said, we do some validations and do some calculations on the receipts. For example, I need to make sure that the total amount is the sum of all the items in the receipt. So this is a calculation, this is the validation that is checked on our side. And if it's not correct, it will be rejected. So it's better that you have to consider these calculations when you are submitting the receipt in order to avoid that your receipt get rejected. So it's better that you do it at your side, from your side, to make your receipt less prone to rejection from the side of the system. So to check the main calculations that you need to consider when you are doing the receipt, you just click here. You will find some the rules in the main calculations. You will find all the rules that you need to follow within your receipt. For example, the issuer ID length must be 9 digits. If receiver type B, receiver ID length must be 9 digits, and so on. So this, you need to check this list and make sure that your receipt is following all these rules. So mainly they are basic checks and calculations that need to be considered. So the second thing is the local validations. So so like I said, we do some validations on the receipts to make sure that the receipt is correct. So the first thing is the structure of the receipt. This is the one I showed you at the beginning of the session, that the receipt you are issuing, you are submitting, needs to follow the structure that we showed you. And it should be in JSON format. And if you open this page, it will get you to the same page that we checked earlier about the receipt structure. So this is the first validation that you need to do to follow the structure. The code validation. So you need to make sure that you are using valid codes from the code tables that are provided on the SDK. You're not using any invalid codes. So this the second check. The core field validators is another set of rules that do some validations and checks as well. And you see this set of rules, okay, that you need to be considering. It's very similar to the main calculation, but it's some other checks, that extra checks that you need to include. For example, it will tell you that issuer ID is required, name is required, type is required, and so on. Okay, so These two parts are the main calculations and the local validations that you need to be checking and including when you are submitting the receipts to avoid that your receipts get rejected, and then after they get rejected, you have to do the modification and then submit again, and after that they get rejected as well. So in order to avoid this hassle, this waste of time, you should consider these validations and calculations before doing any submissions. The second part on the receipt itself, so the UUID itself. So the receipt UUID, this part is generated from your side, not from the system. So in order to generate the UUID, we have this section specifically that explains to you how you can generate the UUID. So you'll find the steps here. For example, the first step, you need to make sure to include all the key fields in the receipt object with the UUID of the previous receipt. If receipt type is returned, then make sure to include the reference UUID. And then on the fourth step, it will tell you serialize and normalize the receipt, which is an operation that will be done on all the receipts fields to make them all flattened in one line. And if you open the link, you will find this is another page that explains in details, this is very technical, how you can serialize the receipt. What is the algorithm that is used? You just need to follow the algorithm to reach the serialization step of the receipt. So after doing the serialization of the receipt, you create a hash value of the text that is the output of the fourth step using SHA-256 algorithm, and then you convert the hash value from 32 bytes to 64 characters. And after that, this is the receipt UUID that you can include and use. So this step is very, very important to understand how you can generate the UUID of the receipt. It's very detailed and has all the steps that you need to be doing to generate the UUID. And this link as well, the receipt-based schema. Just okay, not this one. It should show you the receipt in JSON format. It's here somewhere, so I'll make sure we get to that in this session. The other part is how to sign the batch. As I said, this is on hold for now, so we will be ignoring this part. And the other part is for the QR code. That the taxpayer or you should be generating a QR code and including it in the receipt. And to generate the QR code, it tells you how to do that. What are the fields that you need to include for the QR code. So for example, we need to have a URL. For the URL of the receipt of the QR code, it has to be of this format. You need to follow this format. And receipt type value and registration number, branch code, some information that you need to include in the QR code. And at the end, it shows you what is the QR code content should look like. So you will see this one line that includes all the information that was mentioned about the receipt. And this is an example of a QR code content that you should be, when you are creating the QR code, generating the QR code, this is what it should look like. Yeah. Receipt batch schema and structure. So yeah, this is the file I was talking about. So this is, you see here, this is the submission for the receipts in a JSON format. for your reference as an example how it should look like. So basically, these are all the fields that we have discussed earlier, but in JSON format, if you don't know how to do that. The last sections, so these are some limitations on the receipt submission. So these limitations you need to consider as well in order for your submission not to be rejected. So the first thing is the maximum submission size, meaning that the maximum number of the receipts in a single submission is 500 receipts or 1.5 megabytes. So whatever one of these conditions is reached, more than that, you will not be able to submit have your submission. And the minimum submission size is 1 receipt and maximum is 500. Average number of lines per receipt is 10. This is not a condition, this is more of an advisory. But of course, you can definitely have more than 10 items within a receipt. The receipt is allowed to be submitted within an allowed duration, which is for now 24 hours. Submission date time can be in the future. The supported type is JSON. You have to submit with allowed branch, and you have to submit with valid document type and document type version. And these as well are some limitations on the point of sale device on itself. For example, that the serial number can be up to 100 characters. The POS device has to be registered first and linked to the RIN. And you need to have the B2C tag that we discussed earlier. And the taxpayer should not be blocked for you to be able to use this point of sale. So these are the limitations on the receipt and the point of sale. And by that, we have covered all of the new features, the new APIs that you can use. So you can integrate and start integrating with a solution. You can go to the portal, to the SDK portal. You can navigate and check the APIs yourself. As well, I wanted to show you some of how you can use the environments and some of the Postman collections that are included here. Okay, so this page is an instruction on how you can start if you want to start testing the APIs. So this section you will see here, it's telling you that if you're using Postman, so we have some Postman collections that are ready for you, which includes all the APIs that we've talked about that are ready for you to use right away, and the different environments that we have that you can test the APIs on. So we have different environments and the environment file that you need to include in Postman as well to use these environments. And this is with instruction as well on Postman, how you can import the environment and the Postman collection files to make it easier for you to start testing the APIs and start playing around with it a bit. And at the top as well, you will find information about the different portals that we have: registration, invoicing portal, APIs, identity service, and the certificate files that you need to install at your device so you're able to use the different environments. So this is all with the screenshots to make it easier for you to start testing the APIs. So I think by that we have covered everything, the walkthrough for the SDK, for the APIs. So to give you like a head to start trying and testing the newest APIs. So I think that's it from my side on the SDK portal. And I think if you have any questions, you can yes, just address it to me and the team if you have any questions, anything that was not clear during the session.
Thank you, Emmy. So we will take a few minutes to answer your questions. Please raise your hand so that we are able to listen to your question. And of course, we will go through the order. So whoever raised the hand first will be able to ask the question first. Rajni, please go ahead.
Hi, thanks for the session. Just a quick question. See, how does this work in a web POS scenario where we do not have a point of sale device as such? So it's a hosted application.
So if I understood your question correctly, Rajni, now we support, for example, scenarios that you don't have a physical device or a physical point of sale. You can use, for example, something like a virtual. You can use, for example, your mobile and register your mobile to be your point of sale. So this is one of the scenarios that we support. Did I understood your question correctly?
Yeah, understood. And another quick question, invoicing, is it only for B2B? Because we have an invoice and receipt B2C scenario. It's a combined IAR that we issue to customers. So then in that case, do we just need to integrate with the e-receipt API? Is that sufficient?
So, Rajni, for all existing taxpayers, they are already a B2B, so they all have that invoicing capability. The invoicing capability will not change. Now, for any existing taxpayers who wants to update or add or use the new features that coming from receipt, they will need to have, for example, to be tagged as a B2C. So they will have both functionality for B2B or B2C. Now, from a B2C perspective, the receipts and the submission of the receipts will not affect the day-to-day business that you have. So it will not change anything that you already do. It's more like an additional capabilities or an additional features that you will have to submit receipts in addition to submitting invoices.
So I will need to submit invoice. I will need to integrate with both APIs, invoicing as well as receipt.
Now, if your current Rajni, if your current business you are already submitting invoices, then yes, you will need to submit both. It depends on your business, Rajni.
Okay, so that's what I was trying to explain. That we have it's called an invoice and receipt, but basically the payment collection happens at the same time. There are no separate steps. So in that case, if I can integrate just with the receipt API, is that right?
No, Rajni. Each one of them will have a separate flow. So, for example, submitting invoices will use invoices APIs and it has a specific flow. Submitting receipts, it's a different flow. So you will need, for example, to follow the specific flow for submitting either a receipt or invoice. You cannot, for example, submit receipts as if it's an invoice and vice versa. It has to follow its own flow and its own APIs, Rajni.
Understood. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for the responses.
Team, any other questions?
Hey, hi, this is Vipin from Talabat.
Hi, Vipin, please go ahead.
Hello. Yep.
Yes, hi. So I have a quick question for you. So actually, we are trying to integrate from our end Microsoft Dynamics with the portal. And one of the issues, and we are also in touch with the Microsoft support team who is trying to assist us with the issue. So one of the issue which is really we are facing challenge with is the digital signing mechanism. So now we have a physical device, a device for authentication, which has been provided to us. But the thing is, we are not able to digitally sign, and it does not. It say that the support says that the digital signature does not work with that USB token device, and there's some restriction with relation to the cloud solution. So we are confused, like what to do and what are the alternatives for it.
Your question, Bipin, has two parts. We will need to separate it into two parts. Part that is related to submitting invoicing, which is the current business that you have. And this thing, we will need to go through the support. It will have to go through the B2B support, right? So
Okay.
it's not going to be handled within today's call, because today's call is focused more into receipts, which is the B2C. Now, the second part is the B2C. At this point in time, Bipin, and the first release that we are providing for receipt will not include signature. So the signature will be optional and is currently on hold, and it will be discussed in future releases. So now, if you want to proceed with the B2C and submit all your receipts, there is no signature required at this point in time in this release.
So do you mean that we can upload it without the digital signature?
At this point in time, yes, there is the signature for receipts specifically, and I'm just saying receipts. Invoices will continue business as usual. You will need to provide signature, but for receipts, today with release 1, it is optional. You can proceed without a signature, and that's only for receipt, Bipin.
Okay. So if we talk like, I'll give you an example. So for our entity, the DMart entity, we also have the delivery fees associated, so which we charge to the end customer. So that is a B2C. As so how does it work? How will the signatures work there?
So currently you can, the signature, let me just take a step back and describe the process, Bipin. Now for submitting receipts, they are submitted as a batch. They're not submitted as a single receipt at a time. So you submit them as a batch. Now the whole batch of receipts has a signature component. So you can provide the signature as a batch on the whole batch, not per a single receipt, okay? Now the situation is, at this point in time, since release 1 will not include a signature, you can leave that signature component empty, or that field as empty, and submit it as is. It will go through.
Okay, so we will try that. But in case we face any challenges, can we reach out to the email ID that was mentioned as ereceipt@etagov.eg?
Absolutely correct. Yes, this is the communication that you will need to reach for.
Okay, and you said that B2B will be at a different later phase. So can we understand when will that be?
No, B2B will continue business as usual, Bipin. So that's what I'm trying to tell you. The new component is B2C, which is the receipts, but B2B will continue business as usual. So what you will need is to send your inquiry into our email, the one that Ayman has pasted on the chat window, and ask for both cases. As I told you, you have two cases, one which is B2B, which is business as usual. The second one, which is the e-receipts. The e-receipt, you don't require a signature at this point in time in this release.
Okay, understood. Okay, thanks for the clarification.
No worries, happy to help. Let's check. I guess we have Sanosh.
Hi, this is Santosh from Alshaya.
Yes, please go
The
ahead.
question is related to this item code and item type related to this receipts. So you have mentioned that EGS and GS want to be used for item type and item code, internal code and item code, right? See, the thing is, in Alshaya, we are operating more than millions of items in trading. Do we need to register all of, because we don't follow GS1, we have our own internal IDs. So if you want to go with EGS, do we need to register all these items to use it?
Now, the general practice is usually to add these codes. You have to register them, and they will be specific to you. So these items will be specific to you. So the business as usual process is that you need to register them. But I will also open chance to my team to answer. Emmy and Wissam, do you have any other suggestions?
Yeah, so like you said, Ahmad, so the general practice is that you have to request to register these codes that you can use it later on, yeah.
Yeah, the volume of items are in a very huge quantity. I mean, we operate H&M. H&Ms are coming in a very huge quantity. It's millions every season they introduce to Item Master. So you're saying that can we have a bulk update option for this?
Wissam,
Yeah,
would
there
you
is a
like to
bulk
take this?
update.
Yes.
There is a bulk update on the portal where you can request for code usage.
Can I answer for this point, for this question? So
Please, Andrea, please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Mr. Sancho, yes?
Santosh, yeah.
Santosh, okay. Yes, this is the first time to join us in this workshop, or you joined on B2B?
We already using B2B, but the volume of lines are less in B2B scenario. But when it comes to the store perspective, we have so many brands, and these brands internally have millions of items. We don't know which one will be trading in Egypt. It depends on
you have to follow the same scenario for B2B. Register all items code. If you depends on JS1 code, that will be easy, and you don't need to register. It's already we pull it from the database of JS1. But if you have an internal code, special internal code, you have to register it on the portal of invoicing or receipt. If you haven't registered before.
See, we have we are a franchisee business. Majority are working from US, UK companies. The concern right now is it's not us actually getting item masters. They are creating it, and when we check with them, they don't have any GS1 codes for them. That means we have to go with EGS only option. If you go with EGS option, we have to register at that.
JS1, you have two options, not on a JS1 only option. You have two options. If you already registered, to JS1, it's an easy. You don't need to register all this item. But it's already will be.
We don't have it. We checked it at the time of B2B.
Yeah.
We checked with the B2B's time. We can see that we are not registered with any GS1 codes. So it's a option within Alshaya to understand how we're going to register these items, because we don't have GS1 from the host brands. They push us the internal IDs. We need to convert into EGS or any other options.
But you are talking about the branches in Egypt, yes?
Yeah, we operate across Middle East, Middle East and North Africa, and we
you don't need to register for each branch. It's just only the list of items that will be used through all branches.
Exactly. So it's a volume wise, it's very huge, especially if you talk about H&M. So many brands are there. We operate across MENA. So these all brands has millions of lines every seasons. They will push it to us, and these lines to identify exactly what I should register EGS. We need to know how to proceed with that, because if we cannot say which line will be trading in Egypt and which one will be trading in other countries.
Okay, we will provide other sessions about how to generate a code, our internal code for EGS for the next workshops, and for supporting also we will explain how to decrease this a lot of amount of items, and you can build an specific descriptions for special items that will help you to use it. Don't need to register all the huge items. This will be explained later.
Okay, fine.
Okay. Sure.
Can I have one more question? So in an operational model, if a till has been replaced for any damages or any any working issues, immediately we have to register to start trading, or can we still make a trading and we can register this parallelly?
Can you elaborate a little bit on the scenario, please?
Okay. In one of the tills, when our stores crashed due to some electrical issues, or maybe the machine is damaged, we will immediately replace with another machine in the store to continue the customer facing. In that scenario, can we do the registration of the till?
Now, what you need to do is to introduce it and register it. Like if you bring in a new machine, this has to be registered again. And once it's registered, it is ready. It will be ready to be starting working, right? So this new machine has to be introduced and has to be registered. Specifically, of course, following if it's a different model or from a different vendor, then you will need to follow up the whole cycle about registering it, adding the provider of this machine, adding the model for this machine, generating the keys, and then you can proceed business as usual. There is no issues.
And registering a till is instant, not a delayed process, right? I mean, do we take time for approval?
It's basically you need to provide three areas. It's going to be the vendor, the model, and to register it to wherever you're going to use it. Like, for example, which branch, all these kind of details. Once you get these details and register it properly, you will be able to proceed.
No, I'm asking, is there any delay in the registration completion, or is it like instantaneously you will give the approval?
I'm under the impression that you're asking if there is a specific approval. Let me check with Wissam. Do we have a specific approval, or once he has the keys, he's able to proceed?
Yeah, exactly. Once he have the client ID and the secret, he can post and submit the receipts immediately.
So what you need to get is the keys. That's it. Once you have these keys, the registration keys, you can proceed.
Okay, so that is what I'm trying to understand. If there is a damage happens, we have to make an SLA for that to replace a new till registration part. And if there is a time delay is there, it completing all this process, we have to put it as part of our SOP, standard operating procedure.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
We have Mr. Ali. Please go ahead.
Hi, Ahmed. How are you?
All good. Please go ahead.
Yes, I have a question regarding to that. Maybe I can name it as a software issue. You know that there's a token device and the add-ons in the Microsoft and MSD to do this connection between the tax authority and MSD. But once we extract the certificate from the token and we try to upload it to Azure, it gives that error that the names it's incorrect, or the format file is incorrect. So this one, it should be like a software issue, or we have what we will do in this situation, because this is like, yeah.
It's more like a technical problem what you're facing, Ali. It's either, for example, are you using a JWT token, or are you using specific way how to serialize it or extract it? I'm under the impression that you can reach out to the same email that Ayman provided. And I guess you will need a support from our operator. They can support you.
Cool.
It's a business as usual, Ali. It's not a complex issue.
Okay, I'll raise it for the same email. Thank you, Ahmed.
No problem.
So do we have any other questions?
Can I have one more question just for clarification? When you're posting the e-invoicing from a store perspective, B2C scenario, are you looking or validating the machine is exactly same way as the trading happened? Because I'm just considering the last question. In case the till crashed and we replaced with a new till, can we repost with the old transactions which are not posted with the new till?
Are you talking about e-invoicing or e-receipts? Because you mentioned e-invoice.
E-receipts.
Okay, so for example, if that machine crashed and you have, for example, certain receipts, these receipts that exist on the older machine has to be reissued, Santosh. So you have to reissue them again and resubmit them again.
But the customer is already left. I mean, how we can do that? I mean, it's a receipt which you can't reproduce again.
Yes, no, you don't need to reproduce the whole receipts. Now remember that your machine should cache some of these receipts if you are submitting as batch, right? So it should cache some of them. Now this data that need to be cached or has to be cached has to be managed to be moved to the new machine, or at least to be extracted to the new machine, and then it has to be resubmitted.
So
it's not an issuance of new receipts. It's you need to get that data from the older machine.
Okay. See, my question is like, can we have a centralized push of these e-receipts rather than the point of sale? Because point of sale is more critical for us for store customer facing operational activity. If I put something centralized, which is pushing the receipts to you guys as a B2B scenario, is that fine for you guys?
So what we have is another scenario where you can push it from, for example, from ERP, but that will be more of a future scenario. We will provide an integration toolkit. It's going to be more like an SDK. So it's going to be an integration toolkit that will help you to push it, for example, from ERP. That will be where you can use that centralized scenario you're talking about.
Okay.
Using the integration toolkit, but it's not part of this release. It's going to be in the future release.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Hi, Ali here. It's Marek from Alshaya again. Just to have a question regarding the SDK website that you have. Is there any other information that is out there that helps us in terms of the workflows, how the things work?
Thanks,
You know what I mean?
thanks, Mark, for your question. Now, all the information in addition to the SDK, you remember while you're using the app, which is, for example, the invoicing portal and so on, there is the user guide. The user guide will appear on the menu on the left. So, for example, if you want to look at the user guide, you will see an updated sections there, for example, on how to register, for example, a point of sale or any of the information or the new scenarios that we produced.
Right, so everything will be actually updated as being actually posted as we speak, correct?
Yes, yes. So the information that you're looking for example, you can see it in the SDK, and another location will be the user guide that is on top of the app itself. So you will find it on the navigation menu on the left.
Perfect, perfect, thank you.
Yeah, I can share that quickly as well about the user guide, which is
if you can share the link, that would be great.
Yeah, I'll share the link and show you. So this is the extra part, which is the user guide. So it will look like this. You will have scenarios. So basically, it will include everything, the e-invoicing and the e-receipt, about all the scenarios, any of the operations, the workflow, the logic of the application. So this is more into details. You will find different subjects, and when you click on each one, you will see the details about how you can perform this operation with the screenshots and the clear description. So for example, if you want to register your point of sale, for example, so this is for the B2C, you will find all the scenarios on different topics about the handling and the registration of the point of sale. So we'll be sending you this link as well, so you can check this.
Perfect, thank you.
I guess I missed a hand, maybe Mr. Ziad. There was a hand, but I'm not sure if it's still there.
Yes, yes. Hello, Mr. Ahmed. I have just one question about this project. Is it for a device will be in the store, or it will be an integration project between our ERP system and the tax authority. Because my idea is for this purpose, not for a device in our store.
So what we do provide in general, if we look at it from a conceptual perspective, Ziad, now we do support you to integrate your existing point of sale devices. These are the devices, for example, that you have. You have another, for example, option to use something like centralized, as the question asked earlier about how to use, for example, ERP or an integration toolkit. And the third approach is going to be more like a virtual point of sale, something like your mobile phone can be registered as a point of sale. So these are the three scenarios that we currently support. Now, from a perspective, we expect that you capitalize on these three options and try to integrate accordingly.
Okay, thank you.
Team, any additional questions?
One more point, this is Santosh here again. In our stores, if a customer does a return, which doesn't have a reference to the original receipt, will that be possible to register as a e-invoice? Sorry, e-receipts return? Because you mentioned that
the return has to reference an existing receipt. He cannot just return it without referencing an existing receipt. And correct me if I'm wrong, Andrea, Wissam, but I'm under the impression it must have an original receipt to reference.
No, I
Yeah,
totally
exactly.
agree. I totally agree, but there are cases where customer brings the receipts, torn apart, or maybe we can't identify the original receipt number, but the items are genuine. We have to take it back. All these scenarios are happens in store. So in that case, we have to proceed with the return receipts. Is it so? When you say it is not allowed, is it like completely banned from our operational perspective?
I'm gonna ask you another question. It's just for going through the business case, but I'll leave the rest for Andrea and the team to move forward. Now, since you know the item and you know the item that was sold, and I guess it still have the tag in, you can use, for example, the ERP system to retrieve what was the original receipts or when it was issued. And I guess that might lead you to the original reference number that you had. But from another perspective, I guess this is more like a business case that you might need to ask to our ETA team. And of course, you can either go for it for the email. Remember the support email that we have from Ayman. This is, I guess, where you might get an additional information for it.
Okay, because majority of our Alshaya stores operates multi-store returns. Like if I can buy from Cairo, I can return somewhere in another branch, which is not in that same location. So that place, it's quite not possible to identify the receipt number from a central ERP solution at that moment when customer is standing there. So we have to punch in these receipts and complete the transaction based on item validation and item originated details. Those means there will be some details which we can cross check with customer, but sometimes we have to go for a blind return.
Are you allowing them to return without having the original receipt at hand? Do you allow them just to change it directly?
We don't allow it as per our SOP, but there are genuine cases like we know that these items are bought from that location, but we can't retrieve the original receipt number due to some reasons. But we have to proceed because customer is standing in in the store, and we have to complete his transactions. So that scenario, SOP says that if the store feels it's a genuine customer and the receipt is not able to proceed, also we can proceed with the blind returns. So that scenario makes a blind returns where only the person who captured the receipt will be there as a tag instead of original receipt number.
I guess let me check with Andre. Andre, do you have any suggestion, Andrew, on this one?
Sorry, Ahmad, I fell down for some time and I didn't get this question. Can you abbreviate the questions, please?
They are asking on certain cases, Andrew, that they have certain items that they do return blindly without having the original receipt number. Is that allowed to return without the original receipt number?
Until this moment, I think it is not allowed. You have to insert the original receipt in the as a reference for return receipt. You hear me?
Yes. So Santosh, I guess you need to send an email with the current situation that we have, so that ETA can study the impact of it and return back to you with an answer.
Yeah,
Do you need to return? Do you need to create an return receipt without reference?
Yeah, those are exceptional cases based on the receipt. Like if we give a roll receipt to the customer, if sometimes this roll receipt get torn apart, may not able to capture these are thermal printers. Based on your thermal things, sometimes these inks will go away. So sometimes when you come to the store, we can't recognize the original receipt number out of it, but we recognize the items, we recognize the value that he paid. All these things are there because these are very high, premium products. So we have to take the product back if customer is not liking it. In that case, we have at this moment, point of sale gives a blind return option in Egypt. So in that case, what you're saying is we should stop this, right?
Unfortunately, this is not allowed of this version or this release, but as Mr. Ahmed suggested, you can send email for your case and we will study it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Excuse me, referring to Santosh question or request, sometimes the customer purchases a product from another country, and he need to return this item here in Egypt. What will be the process?
It's another use case, Mr. Imad, that we haven't discussed. So probably, Mr. Imad, you need also to send an email and elaborate a little bit on the current business case.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Because it has impact on taxation and other stuff.
Yeah, but we all go to Dubai for all these expos and all, and we can buy the products for H&M, Debenhams, Mothercare from there, or even from airport. We have so many stores which Al Shah operates. And when you travel back as a foreigner from Dubai, you can return this product back to Egypt because if you want to replace it, that is a practically available option which company is giving because we all have branches in all these countries.
It's a valid scenario, Santosh and Imad, but what we are trying to understand is the impact on the whole module. Like, you know that, for example, there are certain impact that could be, for example, from taxation perspective and so on. So that's why our ETA team has to study it first, and then we can apply it on our modules.
Now, what I'm asking, Ahmad, is it like only if I can raise an e-receipt, only I should fire a transaction? Or can I do a transaction where e-receipt will not be regenerated for this scenario? That's the question.
For the return specifically, Santosh, it will not allow you without the original receipt number. So at this point in time, if you do a return, for example, from out of Egypt, I don't think it will pass through.
Okay.
We're talking at this point in time, Santosh. But after you and Imad elaborate a little bit on this case, maybe there will be an update that we can move forward with.
Okay, okay, fine.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ahmed. Thanks a lot.
Team, any additional questions you have?
Ahmad, this QR code you said to print it on the receipt, right? In case if, because we are uploading the QR code or the entire e-receipt later point to the ETA, the customer should not get complaint, right? That is not working, right? How do you handle this part?
The QR code can be anonymous, Santosh. So for example, whenever you have this QR code, you can scan it and it will not require any authentication to open it. So there is no restriction to open a QR code, right? So once he scans it from his mobile or so on, he will be able to access the URL.
Yeah, that is when we are on time registered to you guys immediately. Like if the point of sale has done the transaction, I've registered along with that. Yes, customer can immediately open the portal or the URL. But if you have a delay between our side to ETA due to registration delay or bulk uploading to you guys, the customer will make a issue to us, or how do you handle it?
Now remember that these receipts has to be approved, like they are valid receipts, Santosh. So whenever you generate, for example, this QR code and so on, it has to be reaching us and it has to be a valid receipt. So for example, in certain cases, this receipt might not pass the validation, so you might end up issuing it again and so on. Only receipts that are valid, that are the ones that will be able to be accessed throughout the QR code. In the other cases where, for example, the receipt got delayed, maybe for submission or so on, it will not show. It might have a delay until the receipts are processed.
Yeah, validation, I'm very clear. I'm just saying if a delay is there, customer should not come back to the store and complain it that I can't open this portal you are putting on the receipt.
I guess you can follow up, of course, on the status of the receipts, right? So you will see it's similar to the B2B where you see that you have submitted, for example, X amount, and there might be some of the stuff that has issues and so on. You will be able, even if the customer returned back to you, you'll be able to check whether that receipt passed or not and see where is the issue on that.
Yeah, B2B scenario, you guys are generating the receipt. We are not generating it. That I very well understand that. So he's not going to get it until you guys approve it. But in this scenario, we are giving the receipts to the customer immediately when he purchases the item, and the QR code is attached.
There will be delay, Santosh, here. It's the usual process that it will has a delay. Because until they are fully processed, you cannot see the result of that receipt.
Okay.
Sometimes, Ahmed, the customers need to change the product or the item. Okay. Without QR code, what will be the status?
The receipt number, when he wants to change an item, it will be a return, right, Imad?
Okay, right.
So he will need to issue a return receipt. And once he issue the return receipts, he will make the change. So he will have to come back to you. He will have to provide the original receipt. You will issue a return receipt. And then he will manage the full process from a return receipt perspective, not from the original receipt.
Okay.
So we give an exchange option in the store. If you buying a product which your size is not matching, we give it another product of size. So it's just an exchange. The value is 0. So one is negative.
Yeah. Return receipt does not mean that the value will change, but it may it mentioned that you have changed the item, Santosh. So this is also a return scenario, Santosh, because the item itself has its own code, right?
Yeah.
But QR code for all items is not obligatory in the first stage when we start B2C.
Can you elaborate a little bit, Imad?
Imad, the QR code is on a receipt, not an item level. So every receipt should have a QR code.
I mentioned the item, not the QR code for the invoice or tax invoice.
There is no QR code at item level. It's a receipt level. I think it's coming on the header.
Okay. It's on the whole receipt, Ahmad. Like if you buy 5 items, I'm not gonna generate QR code per item. I'm gonna generate one QR code for the full receipt that includes a certain information of that receipt, of that specific receipt. Any other question, guys?
Any deadline for this implementation right now, or?
No, this implementation is from our side is planned, and I guess, for example, Nancy and Ayman can give you a heads up on when it's gonna be released.
Okay.
Hi, Marek here. So this B2C side is that going to be governed entirely by the ETA in terms of deadlines and when we're going to be ready? It's all going to be published shortly, right?
Yes.
Thank you. Cheers.
Any other questions, guys?
So in case of no further questions, please allow me to thank Team Microsoft a lot about these perfect clarifications and this clear presentation. Thank you all, guys. Thank you for taxpayers who participated in this workshop. I will stop the recording and we will send the link for this recording shortly through emails. So thank you for all of us.
So please make sure that you correctly wrote your email and the complete information of your company to be able to contact you and to be able to send to you the link of this session. And also, I want to remind you that we will have another workshop at 1:30. This workshop mainly it will be in Arabic, but we will try to translate for you everything that you need to hear at this session.
The link for this session is written on the chat of this meeting.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ahmed. Thank you, Amy, and thank you, Wissam. Thank you for all taxpayers that they joined with us this session. Thank you. Thank you, Ayman.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy.